Welcome back to When Bad Things Happen to Good People, a podcast about censorship and the arts. My name's Todd Sullivan, and with me as always is Oren Barter.
Hello.
And today we are looking at Stanley Kubrick's adaptation of A Clockwork Orange. How you doing, Oren?
Pretty damn good. How about you?
Hear. Good to hear. Good. Yeah, good.
What are you drinking?
What am I drinking? I think I've had this before from Whistler Brewing Company. It's a Mighty 90 Pale Ale. It's only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs. So another one of those low-carb beers. But it's a pale ale, and it's from Whistler Brewing, and it's quite nice. It's got a good pale ale flavor to it.
Yeah, I think I remember you talking about that before.
Yeah, they just started carrying it at my local cold beer and wine store, so I was excited to see that.
Nice.
I have a hair on my tongue. I don't know where that's from. What about you? Have you got anything in front of you that you're sipping tonight?
Well, since I can't join you in Kamloops, I thought I'd represent Kamloops a little bit, and I'm having Squash Gordon. I've had this on the show before. It's from Red Collar Brewing. It's like a pumpkin ale. And it was cheap, and I'm assuming it was because they bought a lot of them for like Halloween.
Oh, yeah.
Overstock.
Yeah, you can sometimes find those things when they bring in something special for an event or like a holiday like that.
So how wrong were we about this movie when we first started talking about the book?
In what sense?
In the sense that we were like, oh yeah, it's like verbatim. Everything's spot on.
Well, okay, so I mean, there's things missing for sure.
Yeah.
And things are rearranged. But, you know, I think the stuff that I was speaking more of like the dialogue and especially Alex's kind of internal monologues in the film, those being more or less lifted from the book. And I do stand by the fact that probably most of them are, if not verbatim, then very close.
No, okay, I will agree with that. But like it had been a very long time since I've seen that movie. I must have been 12 or 13. Yeah. And my recollection of the movie and watching it again, vastly different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think while I was reading the book, I was just like, because I could still picture his voice. I could still hear his, and that's a pretty iconic, it's a very simple kind of voice, but it really kind of made the character, I think.
And I you know what? I did exactly the same thing as you, is I heard it exactly in Alex's voice as well. Yeah.
Or McDowell?
McDowell, yeah.
Yeah.
Before we talk about the movie itself, though, let's just take a second to talk about its banning. This is a rare case when you have both a book and a film that have each been banned or challenged independently. And I don't think that's something you see a lot, and I think it would be interesting to see if that's ever happened before or since. And it's also a rare case where, at least in Britain, it was pulled from theaters by Warner Brothers at the request of Stanley Kubrick in 1973, because it had been kind of connected to violent crimes that had taken place in the UK.
Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. I mean, there was... I'm trying to think what they were. I read it briefly on Wikipedia. There was one case where there was a rape. Someone was raped while the perpetrator was singing in the rain, except they sang it as singing in the rape.
Oh.
And there was one or two other things. I think someone had beaten up an old drunk guy on the street, and they had tried to connect it to the film. This was Kubrick's comment on those allegations that the film was sort of tied to the copycat violence. To try and fasten any responsibility on art as the cause of life seems to me to put the case the wrong way around. Art consists of reshaping life, but it does not create life nor cause life. Furthermore, to attribute powerful suggestive qualities to a film is at odds with the scientifically accepted view that, even after deep hypnosis in a post-hypnotic state, people cannot be made to do things which are at odds with their natures. It was also banned in Ireland in 1973.
Okay. When did this movie come out?
1971, I believe. It's 71 or 72.
Okay.
I should have had that information in front of me, but I do not.
That's okay. I obviously didn't even think to look it up, so.
Yeah. Eventually, the film was passed uncut in Ireland in 1999 and released in the year 2000. In Singapore, the film was banned for over 30 years before an attempt at release was made in 2006.
Holy.
The ban was later lifted and the film was shown uncut on October 2011. In South Africa, it was banned under the apartheid regime for 13 years. Then in 1984, it was released with one cut and only made available to people over the age of 21. It was banned in South Korea and in the Canadian provinces of Alberta and Nova Scotia. The Maritime Film Classification Board also reversed their ban eventually. Both jurisdictions now grant an R rating to the film. And in Brazil, the film was banned under the military dictatorship until 1978, when the film was released in a version with black polka dots covering the genitals and breasts of the actors in the nude scenes. So there you go. It's been banned a fair amount and also pulled from distribution by Kubrick for a very long time. Although, since his death, it has been, I believe, returned to cinemas in the UK, so you can watch it there again. So, yes. Let's talk about this movie and what's different and what's not different. Because that's what each scene is. It's either different or it's not different.
Or it's not there.
Or it's not there, which in a way is different. The beginning is very efficient. They spare no time in getting into the ultraviolence.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it opens with that incredibly iconic opening shot in the Korova Milk Bar with Alex, played by Malcolm McDowell, just staring right into your soul through the camera lens.
With this creepy smile on his face.
Yeah. And then the slow pullback of the camera as we sort of see the rest of his droogs. And we hear his opening narration, which is cobbled from, I believe, the opening chapter in the book. I'd kind of forgotten how small the Korova Milk Bar was.
In the movie. And how sparsely attended it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was picturing like it was going to be big, it was going to be full of people. But in the movie, yeah, it was just like one little hallway, basically, with Alex and his droogs and then one other table of people. And
it looked like a set, and it was. It's one of the few sets. Most of the film was shot in location, but it just, I don't know. It's, I guess, partly because it's been such a long time since I saw the movie.
Well, and like everything on that set was handmade too, and it kind of had that look of handmade. Like all the tables and stuff were like castings of women, and then all the writing on the wall was like in that 60s kind of style writing. Freeform, though, you could like see the imperfections in the writing, and like everything was just hard colors, hard shapes, and yeah, like you say, it was very obvious that it was a set.
But I did like the design of it. I've always sort of dug those naked lady tables. Apparently there was a one of the designers or whatever went off on a weekend with a camera and some models to take photographs of like as many different ways as he could think to contort the human body into something akin to a table. I remember, reading about that and how he said later that there weren't as many as you might think. But yeah, from the milk bar, we jump straight to the homeless guy. There's no librarian.
There's no librarian yet.
And I mean, skipping ahead to what else we don't see, there's no robbery of the the corner store or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's no trip to the bar, at least on this day.
Right.
But we do get the scene with the homeless guy, which I think plays out pretty similarly to the book. And again, I mean, I think that's another incredibly iconic scene of them entering the tunnel or whatever, with those long, long shadows stretching out in front of them as they, walk menacingly towards the old guy.
Right.
Then again, we jump from there right to Billy Boy in the, it was an old casino, and they have their big fight.
Well, that scene,
Petitza.
the scene with the woman, that scene was way too long. That was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot too. I think part of what makes that so uncomfortable is it was not only long, but it was just like one kind of wide shot that almost made it feel, to me, almost like you were watching a documentary about that. It didn't feel
right. Like it wasn't like
it
wasn't like cutting from this angle to this angle.
Yeah,
like
it was
expressions
just like
on the faces. It was just like, hey, this is happening.
It's like a guy across there had just stumbled upon the crime and like whipped out his camera to film it as it was happening.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the case in a lot of scenes in this film. This film has a look and feel that almost borders on, like I said, documentary. To me,
I can see that. No, I can see that too.
So yeah, they have their big fight. Unlike the book, I think each one of them ends up with a dude on the ground that they're pummeling when they hear the police coming and make a break for it. Next thing we know, I think we see them driving in the car.
Yeah, with the stare again. Alex driving the car.
Yeah, yep. And all the rest of the droogs having a time whoop whoop whooping up as they drive.
And can we talk about the makeup?
Sure.
Yeah, like I think that's pretty iconic too. Like, if anybody wore that makeup, I think you would immediately think a Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, well, you mean like the
fake eyelashes just on the
fake
one eye.
eyelashes. Yeah. And the droogs seem to have, they don't have the fake eyelashes, but it looks like they had like some kind of makeup around one of their eyes as well.
Yeah, and didn't Pete, it looked like he had shaved his eyebrows.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Or was he just they have very blonde eyebrows. I couldn't see them. Like there was a couple of scenes where, maybe not Pete, it was Georgie, sorry.
Yeah, I don't remember noticing that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not there, but I was honestly surprised to find that the old writer's home had the name home out front, just like in the book. I didn't remember that being there.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it's when they pull up outside before they enter the property. You can see it said home in an illuminated light. And then they sneak in. It goes a little bit differently talking to the woman. She actually unchains the door, and I think in the book, Alex kicks the chain off.
Because she doesn't shut the door, she just leaves it chained.
To go back and talk to her husband.
Yeah.
And then in this one, too, the husband actually says to let them in. That's part of it, too.
Yeah, that wasn't in the book at all.
And then we have, of course, the assault on the writer, who may or may not have been writing a book called A Clockwork Orange. We don't find out in the movie. But the assault there is pretty horrifying. In part, I think, because of the use of Singing in the Rain.
See, and that wasn't in the book at all, was it?
No.
I don't remember that.
That was absolutely not. That was actually improvised by Malcolm McDowell when Kubrick was saying that the scene was too dry.
Oh, okay.
And but I think like it adds definitely some creepiness to the scene,
which is already pretty creepy.
Yeah. But it also kind of shows the level of frivolity that these guys are treating their crimes with. they're not just committing those horrible crimes. Like, it's almost like to them, it's a big joke.
Right.
And then I think we'll talk about it more when we get there, but when the song comes back around at the end of the film, I think that works much better than the way that scene does in the book.
Really? No, I disagree.
Really?
I felt that was almost lazy writing.
Oh, yeah, no. Okay, we'll talk about it when we get there, but I disagree. Then when they're finished at the writer's place, they head back to the milk bar.
Mm-hmm.
We get the moment where the woman begins singing in between songs on the stereo, which I'd actually forgotten was in the movie.
See, now, I remember that scene, but it felt weird. It just felt weird. Like, she like, the song stops, so she, like, pulls out the sheet music and, like, starts reading off the sheet music. Like, if you got, like, 30 seconds to sing, would you just sing from your gut, your heart? Like, this is premeditated.
She's like, oh, man, I've been waiting for this all day. I brought my sheet music just for this. I actually had the idea, and this is totally me filling in the blanks, but
right.
he mentioned that those people were from, like, the networks. And it got me thinking that, like, maybe they were talking about, like, a pitch for a TV show or a movie, and that song was involved in the project that they were working on, and so she was showing off what the song was.
Okay, that's a bit of a stretch, but
that's what my brain filled in for that moment.
Okay,
honestly, there's nothing in the film to indicate that that's what it is.
There was absolutely nothing to indicate that.
Nope.
I think that's your brain just giving Kubrick maybe just a bit too much credit. Just a bit too much credit, yeah.
And then he gives Dim the old thwack when Dim rudely interrupts the woman singing, and Dim suggests that, you know, he might not like the way Alex is treating him. Maybe they got to fight a little bit about it. And Alex is like, sure, I'll fight you anytime. And Dim kind of...
I'm tired.
Backs down on that. Yeah. Maybe I just need a little...
What did he say? Bedways?
Bedways, I think. Something like that, yeah. And so then we see Alex wander home to his, you know... It's interesting to see the world of the book kind of brought to life, because definitely the kind of building that he goes home to feels very much in line with the way that, you know, the world and the buildings were described in the book.
Yeah, like everything on his walk there, everything was kind of really, stuff was thrown about on the streets.
Trash, really there was graffiti everywhere.
And it really didn't look like anybody was looking after anything. The elevator was broken at his house, which, I mean, those doors were way too thin for elevator doors.
Yeah. The thing about the elevator, that when he stops to use it, I mean, it makes me think that it must have just broken that day. Otherwise, Alex stops there every day in the hope that maybe it's working this time.
Or it was just too difficult to get that across without him actually fiddling with the elevator a little bit.
I don't know. That elevator looked pretty bad even before he walked up there.
That's true. It did. It looked like it had been bad for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found the... I was really surprised by the art in all of these places. It seemed kind of amateurish and very what's a good word for it? Very odd and sexual. It seemed like every piece of artwork hanging on any wall anywhere was just overtly sexual and hand painted in an afternoon.
I had that note about the artwork being all very sexual, but then I thought about it afterwards, and I think it's just, like, Alex has a big sexual portrait in his room of the woman on her back, the legs up in the air, spreading herself out. And then the Catwoman had a bunch of erotic art as well, but I think that's pretty much it, except for, like, there's a big erection spray painted on one of the murals outside by a graffiti artist, but I don't remember there being, like, any sexual art inside of his parents' part of the house.
Yeah, I don't know about his parents' house, but the Kurova Milk Bar had naked women tables.
Oh yeah, but that's also like that's obviously their aesthetic, right? Like as we see when they go back to the milk bar the second time, they actually deliver the milk through the nipples of the statues.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right, Tim goes and buys himself some milk at the end of the night.
He talks to the statue when he's pouring the milk.
Yeah,
like, I've had a hell of
a
a night, Stacy, or whatever the fuck her name was.
Yeah.
Okay, so he goes home, listens, Slooshies some tunes.
Yeah, he has a snake.
Yes.
In the film.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if that was in the book, but yeah.
It was not. And then he's off to sleep. And he has... Oh, right. He Slooshies his tunes, and man, he gets a weird look on his face when he gets into music. And he's having his fantasy time.
That's what that was. Because it happened at the end of the movie, too, and I was like, what is with this fucking look on his face? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then
it was
that makes sense.
Because it showed, like, as that look goes across his face, and then it has these flashes of his, like, the woman being hung, and him with vampire teeth, and explosions, and sort of like those are the fantasies going through his mind as he, gradually falls asleep.
And like 90% of his fantasies are him with vampire teeth.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, flash to this, flash back to him with vampire teeth. Now this, now vampire teeth.
He just really wants to be a vampire. Next thing you know, Alex's mother is banging on his door to get him up for school, but he's got a pain in the Gulliver. Decides to stay home and
I thought I remembered
off.
him like holding his stomach in the movie. We even talked about this. We both had that same memory.
Well, you brought it up, and I said that could be why I had made the mistake of thinking it was his stomach.
Yeah, I so clearly remembered him, and I can still remember him holding his stomach, but he doesn't even in the slightest. He's not even. He just lays in bed and he's like,
he just lays there. Yeah.
Yeah. If I don't rest now, I'm likely to miss more school.
Exactly. Yeah, you haven't been to school all week. Yeah, well, if I don't get well, I'm going to miss even more. So those parents are definitely pushovers.
Oh, yeah. His dad throughout the whole movie just tiptoeing around him, which is pretty on point for the book, I got to say. I did like his rendition of the father.
Yeah, let's talk about the PR deltoid scene.
Oh my fucking god. It was anything that you liked about that scene?
I don't know what to say about that scene.
Such a weird scene.
The dude, so first of all, it opens weird with like Alex walking down the hallway, scratching his ass through his underwear, walks past, I guess, his parents' room probably, and we catch a glimpse of somebody in there as he walks by. It takes Alex a moment, stops, turns around, comes back, and there's this fellow on the bed.
The sweaty, awkward, nervous guy.
But he's got this weird accent and a weird like vocal affectation where it's like, good to see you, Alex, yes?
Oh, it was awful.
And ending everything with yes. Pain in the Gulliver, is it? Yes. So, yeah, then the conversation does play out pretty much like it does in the book. The deltoid is there because he's worried about Alex, and, he's there to remind him and us that the next time, he kind of breaks the law, it's going to be, to the big boy prison and not juvie.
Yeah, well, Alex is like, I haven't been in trouble with the cops for a while. Yes, you haven't been in trouble with the cops for a while. Yes, but... yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying, young Alex.
He suddenly tries to punch him in the junk.
Was it a punch or a grab? Like, what the...
It was... I felt like his fist was balled, but I could be wrong.
Like, he makes Alex sit down beside him, then he knocks him down on the bed, lays down with him, and then smacks his junk.
Smacks his junk, and is like, what is happening?
And then he drinks a glass that was on the table, and
he drinks denture goo. That was a glass that someone's dentures were in.
What the fuck?
There's so much in this scene that I don't understand. But there's probably critics out there who have written long, complicated essays about what this reveals about the true meaning of A Clockwork Orange.
Right.
I think to an extent, maybe it's just there for comic relief. I don't know. I guess next we have Alex heading out for the night, right? Does that sound right?
Yeah, so he dresses up. Oh, no. Was this before or after the record store?
Oh, yes. He goes to the record store.
Right.
This is sort of where I might want to talk about some of the design choices in this film. I think when you look back on a film this old, which I guess if I said 71, that would make it like that's 50 years old this year.
Holy crap. Yeah, you're right.
Anytime you look back on something that old, especially something that tries to place itself into a future, it doesn't always work out because it's a future that you're building off of a modern aesthetic, and that modern aesthetic does not necessarily always hang around into the future.
Yeah.
And there are things like I think the general look of Alex and the Droogs when they're out, perpetrating crimes, like that's iconic and doesn't really look dated. It looks obviously unique to the world that they're in, but that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have what Alex wears to the record store.
Right, which looked like a house coat. A very 60s style long
I don't think it was
jacket.
a house. It was more like an overcoat, long purple, tailored overcoat.
It just kind of reminded me of like a big lavish house coat.
And yeah, I think that's something that definitely like that's one of the dated looks. It screams something from like the late 60s, early 70s, and the flamboyance of those periods, and then trying to like make it even more flamboyant for this vision of a future. And even sort of like the hairstyles and the costumes of the two girls he picks up at the record store seem a little bit dated as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, unlike the book, he picks up these two clearly not 10-year-old females, brings them back to his place, and has what appears to be consensual sex with both of them. A lot of consensual sex.
In fast forward.
I found it interesting that like throughout that scene, there's times where like one of the women gets up and gets dressed and, looks like she's planning to leave. And then, Alex gets up and woos them back to bed and out of their clothes again. And if that, if I had to choose between that and going to school, I'm probably going to have a pain in my Gulliver too. And then, yeah, next we have Alex heading out for another night of debauchery.
That's right.
And like in the book, his droogs are waiting for him outside his apartment. Kind of takes him by surprise.
Dim is like pretending to drive a car.
Is that what you thought he was doing?
That's what he was doing. Yeah, he had like a bike tire in his hand and he was like doing the shifter. He was totally driving a car.
Oh, I missed that. I just saw him like kind of rocking in the baby carriage or whatever it was.
Oh, no. He's like sitting in a chair. He had a bike tire for a steering wheel and he was like pretending to shift the gears and driving real fast. Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, much like in the book, Georgie comes with a plan to do something else and elevate their standing as criminals.
And also they stand up to Alex just like in the book.
A little bit, yeah.
Except I really liked how they had like George was talking to Alex basically, and then Dim was just kind of like repeating what Alex was saying or what George was saying. I like that. I think that's
a trait of Dim throughout the film. When they were raping the writer's wife, Dim was frequently parroting part of the Singing in the Rain song. He kept saying, "Time for love, time for love."
Right.
So yeah, having Dim kind of repeat back what someone's saying is kind of a consistent character trait throughout the film. Although, again, it's an interesting one. So they head out, and Alex isn't too impressed with the way that they're kind of pushing back on his leadership. And so, and this is another, I think, like really, really iconic scene is that, as they're walking by the waterway there in slow motion, and Alex decides to like lash out at the droogs that tried to push back at him and conks George right in the junk, kicks him into the water, flips Dim into the water.
Yeah.
Pete, much like Pete of the book, just tries to slip away and remain unnoticed. And then you made a remark, I think, when you were... Oren decided to like live tweet his responses to the movies directly to me through Facebook Messenger. So I think you made a comment about this moment in your live messaging.
So I didn't really remember this in the book. I thought that Dim got stabbed kind of in the heat of the moment.
They were actively fighting. Yes.
Yeah, but in the movie, Alex actually holds his hand out to help Dim get out of the water. And when Dim gives him his hand, trusts him to get him out of the water, that's when Alex takes his knife and cuts his hand, which I thought was much worse.
Yeah. And there is like, obviously Malcolm McDowell is the iconic performance in this film, but there's such a great look of both shock and
pain
and sudden distrust on the actor who plays Dim's face in that moment. So yeah, kudos.
Captured in slow motion as well. Yeah, no,
captured in slow motion.
That was a good scene.
And then we're next at the pub, having a few drinks to dull the pain of everyone's wounds. Alex basically has everyone confirming that everything has been restored to its rightful order of things. Everyone seems to be in agreement, and now he wants to know about this score that George wants to do, which takes us to the cat lady.
Takes us to the cat lady and some very, very terrible art.
You didn't like the giant rocking penis?
I didn't like most of the art in this movie. I
really?
have to say, yeah, there wasn't really a set that caught my eye, and I was like, wow, that was, that's interesting or well made or has a story to tell. Everything just seemed to be meant to be outrageous and of poor quality. I actually have a note here: art outrageous and horrible quality.
Wow, look at this. We got a bit of an art snob on our hands here.
It just felt cheap. I don't know. It felt a little cheap, I gotta say.
I didn't mind it.
Okay.
I dig erotic art, so.
Okay.
So this plays out again, pretty much, at least initially, as it does in the book, with them trying the same trick as the old guy, as on the writer, knocking on the door.
We actually get to see her make the phone call though in the movie.
That is, yeah, I thought that was interesting, and the way that she explains her reason for doing it, because the attack or the conversation she has with Alex through the door reminds her of a story that she read about the writer from that morning's paper.
Yeah.
Which sort of tips her off. And also that's what sort of triggers the police to kind of rush out there once she calls, because she's like, well, they're already gone, or they're probably already gone because they're not.
Right.
But obviously this in a car out anyway. Meanwhile, Alex gets boosted up the side of her house to crawl in a window. Him arriving on her just as she hangs up the phone is a pretty creepy moment, actually. I thought.
Mm-hmm.
She hangs up the phone, and then we see the door open at the far end of the room that she's in, and Alex just kind of walk in, and I don't know, that just felt like such a moment of like someone's privacy.
Yeah.
Broken.
Like she just finished saying to the cops, like, "Oh, they're probably gone."
Yeah. Obviously, the fight plays out a little bit differently. There's no cats attacking Alex, which is too bad. That would have been fun to see.
That would have been fun to see. And then the interaction with the Beethoven bust was completely different. She grabs it and goes after him.
I don't think he even sees it.
Yeah, he actually grabs the rocking penis statue, and that's what he beats her over the head with.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was a little disappointed that he wasn't interested in like reaching for the Beethoven bust and, you know, fighting off cats and fighting off the woman and like, I want that Beethoven bust. And
Well, it just seems, I don't want to say odd or disappointing, but there's something seems wrong to have it there without some kind of acknowledgement from Alex about it. Like, I mean, obviously we see it, but
well, and
is it?
Especially because it plays such a big factor later on in the movie, right? His love for Beethoven.
Yeah.
And has he really brought it up other than when he hits Dim at the milk bar when the Petitza is singing? Like it just feels like it was kind of that aspect of Alex was kind of underplayed in the movie, and then it becomes such a big deal later on.
Yeah,
it just doesn't feel like it was.
That's one of the odd things for me is I remembered it being, you know, his love of Beethoven being a bigger deal in the movie, and it does seem more or less downplayed.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get in a bit of a fight. She ends up on the ground. He clocks her in the face with a giant penis. And
is that a sentence you ever thought you would ever say in your life?
Probably not. No. Heads out the front door where his droogs are waiting for him to smash him in the face with a bottle of, I guess, milk to go from the Korova milk bar.
I guess so. How did it happen in the book? Do you remember?
Yeah, Dim used his chain
to hit him in the face, and then he tied him up.
In the face.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they didn't tie him up. They just left him there.
Oh, I thought they tied him up. Okay.
But he was blinded by the hit in the face by the chain, and then he just couldn't get anywhere before the police got there.
Right.
And it's the same thing here. He's blinded, I guess, by the milk. I mean, don't get synth mesk into your eyes.
Apparently, it blinds you.
Mm-hmm.
The more you know.
And then he's off to
jail,
prison, which is something unique in the film. Is getting the opportunity to see his arrival in jail. We don't immediately leap 2 years ahead. We see him show up and, his first few moments dealing with the authority figures in the jail.
Before we do that, I want to talk about
I did jump again. Gets brought in, gets arrested, interrogated.
But he doesn't sing like a canary like he did in the book. Like he's a bit more stoic. He's I felt like I missed that aspect in the movie. I thought that was better played out in the book.
Yeah.
And like even when he gets spit on, he doesn't say like, "Oh, thank you, sir, thank you," right? Like he just kind of gives a smirk.
Yeah, it's definitely two different choices on how to characterize that character of Alex.
Right.
But yeah, for the most part, I mean, he's being interrogated. He's not saying anything. One cop is like pushing on his slash nose, so he grabs that cop in the junk. Deltoid shows up, gets invited into the interrogation room.
And like after the first encounter with Deltoid, when he came, I was like, how the fuck is this gonna go?
Right.
Like what am I about to watch?
Nothing really weird happened.
No,
here,
it wasn't nearly
it was
as
pretty much like
just that one scene was just so fucking weird.
The cops are like, if you want to take a jab at him, you go ahead, and Deltoid chooses to just spit on him instead. And
which is the book, yeah.
Yeah, just wipes doesn't even wipe it all off. He just wipes his mouth.
There's another thing that's different here. Deltoid actually tells Alex that the woman died, which
that's right
is different in the book. I believe he comes to that realization on his own when he understands that he's like really facing some serious charges.
And again, I think we can talk more about specific changes when we get to the end.
Yeah.
But like, I think for the most part, all of these decisions, all of these changes have been about just speeding things up and being more efficient.
Yeah, which we came across in the autobiography of Malcolm X as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that's added to our understanding of Alex. If we'd had the scene where he robs the store or the scene where
I can see why like that doesn't really, I mean, they could have drug on the whole night of debauchery, but they got the point across with the stories that they did tell. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're at Alex arriving in prison. signing in, turning over his clothes, turning over his belongings,
getting a flashlight up the butt.
I do remember always being entertained by the character of that prison guard who was always yelling at him.
And super enthusiastic in his salutes.
I've always found that character entertaining in this film.
Just so he seems to be over the top.
Just so over the top. And like, especially when he's interacting with like other guards or other prison administrators who don't have his same level of
commitment
anything.
To the role. Yeah,
and exactly. He just doesn't care. He's still bringing it all the way.
And then I love that Alex actually eventually mocks him.
Yeah.
He just gives him the exact same salute back. We get into the point where he gets chosen for the Ludovico technique.
Yeah, so next we see him, he's working with the chaplain or whatever, the prison priest.
Right, he's enjoying all the bad things in the Bible. That's right.
Yeah. So he talks to the chaplain and is like, I've heard about this new technique. Could you maybe get me in for that? And the chaplain pretty much just suggests he kind of pray for it, I guess. And then not long after, I guess maybe the next scene is when we see the minister of the interior or inferior as Alex called him in the book, arrive to look for someone to take into the Ludovico technique. We see him stop at Alex's room and have, not his room, his cell, where he's got this interesting, he's got like nudie pictures on his wall, and then also like a crucifix, and then also like a photo and a bust of Beethoven. And
I don't know if I remember this. I was having troubles with the movie around this time, so I think I might have missed this part.
It's basically the guard is just walking down along the hall of the prison before he goes out to the prison yard where all the prisoners are. And he stops at this one cell, and he walks in and looks around. It's obviously Alex's because he's got all this stuff, the bust of Beethoven and everything else. Mm-hmm. And he does stop, and he actually stops and looks at the bust of Beethoven and then at the photo of Beethoven that Alex has on a shelf. And I don't know if that's meant to imply that like he was already leaning towards the person in this cell as part of the, his reasoning for choosing him for the Ludovico technique, or what, what that scene was sort of meant to portray.
Maybe it was meant to portray Alex's love for Beethoven, because we were complaining that it wasn't as big of a deal in the movie as it should have been. So maybe Kubrick was like, we need to like make sure that later on in this movie, people understand where this is coming from. I don't know.
Maybe.
I never saw it, so I shouldn't even be talking about it.
There you go. You never saw it. I maybe just made up a scene that isn't there. I just maybe you did talk about it. The guy comes out to the prison yard. Everybody lines up. Starts doing this talk about how they need to start clearing out prisons to be used for like political enemies or political prisoners, and so criminals need to be just what was the word he used? Cured, basically.
Right.
Because, keeping criminals together with other criminals is just breeding further criminality because they just enjoy it so much. And Alex basically pipes up and says, yes, you're right. The shouty guard is like, you shut your mouth. But Alex is, the fact that he jumped in and spoke up seems to impress the Minister of the Interior, and he's like, this is what we're looking for, this guy right here. We'll bring him in to the Ludovico technique. And then Alex gets brought in front of the prison warden, I think.
Right.
So yeah, Alex signs himself over to the Ludovico technique, agrees to have his sentence committed to whatever the technique is.
Yep.
Although I did think it was interesting because, I mentioned when we were talking about this part of the book that, Alex signed himself over that anyone there to like, help him understand the legality of the contract he was signing. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was an interesting thing that, like, Alex does briefly try to read the contract.
And they tell him, no, don't reading, just
And the
sign
guard's
it.
like, don't read that, just sign it. It's interesting that Alex was at least wise enough to maybe try to have some understanding, but not wise enough to fight for that understanding.
Right.
He gets shipped off to where they're going to do the Ludovico technique. We see him in his room there, having a lovely lunch. Nurse comes in to sort of tell him what's going to happen, and he gets his first injection of serum 114.
Right. And the 114, I love that was like written in pen, or like it was different than the label. It's like they made these labels. They're like, we're going to go through so many of these. We're just going to have these.
Right,
labels.
exactly. Yeah.
Like, yeah. I thought that was an interesting choice.
And then Alex gets a shot in the butt. Different location in the movie. I seem to recall it going in his arm in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And then he is brought to the theater.
See, and now I didn't really picture this happening in a theater.
Right.
So it was interesting to see. Like, I was like, oh, okay. He's videoing the cinemas in the cinema. Okay.
You know, I mean, I don't know if I saw it as in a theater when I was reading the book.
Mm-hmm.
I did see it as kind of like having seats like in a theater, but I was thinking of it more like in a university classroom setting where you have that kind of like the amphitheater, the stacked seats going up. Yeah. And maybe you would have an actual physical projector at the top that was shining down onto something below, not like behind, like in the projector room, like in a proper theater. Right. Sort of what I was picturing.
Yeah.
I think you said something about the device he used to hold his eyes open.
Oh, it looked horrible. Yeah. And like that was actually like that was in his eyes. Like that must have been absolutely, and they just kept dropping those drops into his eyes.
Yeah.
Like that must have been an incredibly uncomfortable scene to act.
Yeah, and so a couple of fun bits of trivia about that scene.
Okay.
The guy who put the clamps in his eyes and he was doing the eye drops was an actual doctor who was on set to make sure that nothing bad happened to Malcolm McDowell's eyes.
Oh, okay.
However, in spite of that, he did end up with a scratched cornea from that scene.
Yeah, I was like watching his eyes move around, and I was like, man, he'd like, that's gonna scratch. Like, that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, that's gotta scratch.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
And then, unlike the book, we get a really condensed version of the Ludovico technique. It goes on much, much longer in the book.
Yeah.
We only really see it happening twice, and it's only in the second time that they introduce music with the films, and specifically Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Mm-hmm. And we later find out, different from the book, that Alex is not conditioned against all music, but just specifically the Ninth Symphony,
right? Which
is his favorite. And that, I don't know how I feel about that change. I feel like it's...
Well, here's the thing. If he was averse to all music, the scene later on when he's Singing in the Rain.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, that's...
I'm singing it.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't have had the same effect. And I think that's one of the reasons...
Yeah.
One of the reasons I didn't really like that scene too much. Because I felt like they stripped away a part of the book, not just to speed things along, but to make a rewrite work. But I've been known to be a little too critical.
So after, so obviously we have, we get a chance to see him going through 2 of these treatments. Obviously there's a lot more. But next time we see Alex, he's ready to be showcased in front of a room full of people to show how he has been taught to not to be bad anymore. And these scenes, again, play out pretty much like they did in the book.
Now, in the book, the guy, when he licks his boot, I thought that was Alex's idea, not the guy's idea.
It was.
Yeah,
it was Alex's idea.
But everything else seemed pretty much on point. I didn't really see. Actually, I missed a part of this too because the pizza arrived. So I missed. We saw the boobs, and then I had to go get the pizza, and then when I came back, there was no more boobs. So I don't know what happened between there and the no boobs, but.
Oh, basically, he just, he starts, thinking about having her, and then he sort of falls down on his knees, retching, and
right.
There's a moment of him kind of like on his knees, struggling with his desire for her, like looking up, trying to reach for her breasts, and he can't. He's overwhelmed and sort of collapses on the ground.
Does he say all the things like, I want to protect you, I want to be your knight in shining? Does he say all those things?
No, okay. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's all pretty internal.
Okay.
And then Alex he's
a free man.
Is a free man. I think we cut to him like arriving at his parents' place pretty much, don't we?
I think so, yeah.
So Alex is a free man. He pretty much arrives on his parents' doorstep, popping open the door, walking in. We find his parents at home with Joe, and they're all reading about Alex's release in the newspaper. So we don't get that whole kind of shock to see him moment that we do in the book.
Right.
But they are still kind of awkward about the whole, hey, son, you don't really have a room thing. And by the way, this is Joe, our new son.
No, I get yeah, it's Joe that calls him the son, but
yeah.
Yeah. And then he does his old like melodramatic, like, I'll just leave, nobody wants me here anyway.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just be on me own or whatever it is. Miadi Nadi.
Miadi Naki.
Audinaki, yeah.
Yeah. And so he has a nice little mournful walk by the water.
But then he gets beat up. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I think briefly when he's looking out on the bridge and on the water, I think they don't articulate it, but I think he's thinking about killing himself at that point.
Oh, okay.
I think he's looking at that bridge thinking about jumping off of it. And I think that's what we're meant to take away from that.
Right. That makes sense.
But then, yeah, the old wino he beat the crap out of at the beginning of the movie
comes out for some money and then's like, I remember you. That's the bugger that did it. And then where did all those old people come from?
I think Alex or the old guy drags Alex into the underpass that he was in before.
Okay.
And they're all sleeping under there.
Gotcha.
So the rise of the librarians has been replaced by the rise of the hobos. And again, I think this is just super efficiency, really.
Yeah.
And it's smart. You don't need to have the library guy. You don't need to have that visit to the library. You can have the same thing happen with
but the visit with the library was also like he was looking for a way to kill himself. So it really rang home that desire for. But like you say, maybe the looking over the bridge was kind of his way of bridging that, right?
Yeah, and I don't know
bridging that. Get it?
Yeah. I don't know how important it is to the story that we understand that Alex is thinking about killing himself at this point.
Okay. That's fair.
Then the police arrive to take care of the hobos.
Now, okay, it was Dim, and then it was
Georgie.
It was Georgie. Yeah, it was Billy Boy in the book, but it was Georgie.
It was Billy Boy in the book. And again, I think this is probably a better use of characters.
Yeah.
Georgie, we learn partway into Alex's sentence that Georgie was killed while assaulting a home.
But in the movie, Georgie's alive and well and beats the living piss out of Alex.
They proceed to drown him.
Dude, that scene was so long.
I know.
Did he have a breathing apparatus under that thing?
I was wondering about that myself.
I thought they were actually going to kill him, and then the next scene was going to be a different actor because they fucking killed Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah, I wondered if there was a breathing apparatus in there, or whether or not he must have had maybe some kind of a hand signal or something to notify.
His hands were tied.
Yeah, they could be fake movie handcuffs that you can release if you need to.
Okay, that's true. That's true. But yeah, that was...
It went on for a long time, though, for sure.
It was scary. Like I was actually like
And
physically
again,
scared.
that's another one of those scenes that was like a single one shot.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't cut away at all.
Man, they put him through hell for this movie.
And then they leave him out there in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
And much like the book, he staggers off to eventually stumble upon
To find home.
the writer's house.
Yeah.
Yep. Little bit different here. The writer is no longer a solitary person in his house. He seems to have brought in maybe a bodyguard, someone to keep him safe after the...
Yeah, I made a note of that. I think that he hired him to keep him safe. But also, do you know who this is?
Yes, I do.
Nice.
David Prowse.
This is Darth Vader. Your daughter's
best known for
favorite character.
Yeah, well, the Darth Vader's body.
Well, yeah.
I love that shot when we first see the inside of the house after the doorbell ring, because
it's a flash. It's a shot back,
mirror.
Yeah, to the earlier scene. Yeah, I like.
Yes,
that too.
but so quickly you learn so much, because as it pans from the desk, and you start to see more of the writer behind the desk, we can see that he's in a wheelchair now. He wasn't before.
Yeah.
And then we get over to where the wife was, except there's no wife there. It's this massive bodybuilder Darth Vader man.
Well, you could hear that the whole time, and I was like, "What is that? What am I? What are we padding to right now?"
Yeah, right. And so Darth Vader goes and opens the door.
Let's just call him Darth Vader for the rest of the podcast.
Alex collapses into the home because he's just kind of passed out on the door.
Yeah.
Darth Vader picks him up and brings him in to the home. He's like, I think this guy needs some help.
Oh, and he actually has some speaking lines that made it into the final cut in this movie.
Right, yeah. And so I can't remember if Alex starts talking right away, but the writer, much like in the book, recognizes him as the kid from the Ludovico technique, and wants to use him to help his attempts to sort of damage the reputation of the government.
Yeah.
And then Darth Vader goes and runs a bath for Alex because he's cold, and then Alex ends up in the bath while the man is on the phone making arrangements for his friends to come over so they can, figure out how they're going to utilize having Alex in their possession in order to, again, damage the government's reputation.
Right, which is the same as the book, yeah.
Yeah. But when he gets off the phone, he notices that Alex is singing in the rain while he's in the bath.
Before we get to him getting off the phone,
yes.
Great line, the thin end of the wedge. I made a note of this.
Yeah, you like that in the book.
I love that line. That is such a great line.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad that it made it into the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So he hangs up the phone. Alex is singing in the rain, and this is where I made the note, like, I thought music made him sick, and then that's when I realized it was just the one, and then that's when I realized why they made that choice, and that's when I kind of started to hate it a little bit.
See, I think this is a better, more natural reveal of who Alex is. I think it feels really forced.
It would have taken way too long in the movie to do all those subtle little, because the writer learns it slowly. Yeah.
Just from little, misphrases, and from, he assumes the writer doesn't have a phone because they claimed he didn't have a phone when he was first there. And
right.
Just these gradual things. And to have one single jaw-dropping, oh my God, that's who this is moment, I think works a lot better.
Yeah, but I mean, let's remember, Alex isn't a complete idiot. He wouldn't have sung the same song that he sang. Like, it seemed a little bit like we just need to make this happen, to me personally. That's how I felt about it. I felt like it was just maybe a little too on the nose.
I don't know, I liked it.
Okay, that's fair. You're entitled to your opinion, even if it's wrong.
I know, right?
No, I'm just joking.
And so when Alex is out of the bath,
right?
Well, so we know now that F. Alexander the writer now knows who Alex is.
Yeah.
And so when Alex gets out of the bath, he's got a plate of spaghetti waiting for him. Sits down, starts eating. A few minutes later, Darth Vader brings the writer into the wheelchair, brings him down to the lower level, sets him down. I gotta say, the writer is not keeping his cool here with Alex.
No. Try the wine.
He's probably can't control the rage that he feels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not all of us could like bundle that. I mean, let's look at it. Like, he's lost his legs. He lost his wife.
Mm-hmm.
How many people would be able to like confront the person that did that to them in a calm and rational way?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think the fact that his performance goes in that way, it leads Alex to those feelings of, like, Alex is gradually becoming more and more nervous, especially as he's offered the wine.
He doesn't want to drink the wine, yeah.
He doesn't want to drink the wine. No one's drinking the wine with him, and he keeps, like, delaying it for as long as possible. Oh, lovely color.
Lovely bouquet, yeah.
Lovely bouquet. And, you know, obviously he thinks that the guy's, you know, because, of course, he recognizes the guy by now.
Yeah. Well, no, he knew right off the bat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the writer's friends show up.
Right. And then when they walked in, I made a note, there's the singer from the Milk Bar. And then I saw her in a different angle and I said, wait, maybe not. Do all British people look the same?
That's racist.
Is it though? I guess it is a little bit. No, like when I first saw her, I was like, it's the woman from the Milk Bar. And then I was like, oh wait, no, I'm totally wrong.
No. And so they ask him some questions about his experience, particularly about music and how he was conditioned against music. And he corrects them by saying he was just conditioned to react to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. And then he passes out in his plate of spaghetti.
Yes.
Which is a moment that I had forgotten about. And a nice sort of reverse twists kind of thing, because obviously his paranoia about the wine is supposed to make us think maybe he's being paranoid about the wine. And then when the other people show up and everything seems to be fine, we kind of forget about the wine thing. And then when he passes out, we're like, oh, I guess there was something in the wine after all. Ugh. And I like just how, like, as soon as he did that, you know, she flipped her little notebook shut, and the other guy says, good job, F, or whatever they said. And, you know, because they were both in on what he was planning to do here.
Yeah.
And just playing their part until such time as Alex
and now
succumbed to the wine.
Now, because when he was talking on the phone, he was very sincere about, like, you know, we can really use this kid. This kid's been done wrong. Like, he didn't understand before he heard his voice. So I'm wondering, like, it almost feels like they had this planned regardless of whether or not he hated Alex.
That's an interesting take. I think it's entirely possible to perceive a revised phone call.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, in the same way that, like, in the book, we don't ever see the writer and his comrades gather to decide to torture Alex to death. Mm-hmm. But I think you can safely assume that that was not their plan from the start.
Okay.
Right? When they just thought he was the guy who had been taken advantage of by the government, given this Ludovico technique. They obviously wanted to do something, but I don't think it was like torturing him to the point of suicide. I could be wrong.
Okay.
It could be that, you know, that there is no good side here. There's, you know, the government is terrible. The people trying to bring down the government are terrible. Alex and his droves are terrible. Yeah. Everybody is terrible. Except for Joe. Joe is the one not terrible person in this book.
Joe? Who's Joe?
Joe. He's the guy living at Alex's room.
Yeah, he's kind of a douche.
Really? You think so?
Yeah. I think, what was his name? Sorry, I forget his name. David Prowell?
Deltoid?
No, Deltoid was a piece of shit.
I don't know who you're talking about.
No. What the?
The chaplain.
No. Why didn't I write his name down? I don't remember it now. Prowse. David Prowse.
Yeah.
Yeah. His character.
Oh, him.
Yeah, his character. He was a decent guy. Sorry, we're digressing.
Those were some short shorts on him.
Oh, dude, I was like, that was like a fucking thong.
Right?
Yeah. And that dude had a dump truck of an ass too.
Right. Butt cheeks just hanging out there.
And then we get I want to talk about that tableau. Because that was, I think, my favorite part of the movie.
Okay.
When they're panning or like bringing the camera back, they've got the bodyguard dressed in a suit leaning up.
So yeah, first Alex wakes up in a new place.
Sorry.
On a bed with Beethoven's Ninth Symphony playing redonkulously loud.
Yeah.
And then we cut to, I think, what we're supposed to assume is a floor below to find the writer and the rest of his crew down there. They've got like these massive speakers pointed towards the ceiling, and they're just trying to make Alex's little life miserable. Mm-hmm. So tell us about that shot there.
Oh, that shot. That was a beautiful shot. Just the way that everything was framed, the position of everybody, what they were wearing, how like their facial expressions. It was just like I thought it was a great scene. And not only just the positions of everything, but then also that slow pan out and just kind of getting a broader view of everything. That was by far
and how like
scene.
each little moment was gradually revealing more about what's going on there. Like in a perfectly timed way, like starting just with the writer looking up, that kind of look of mad glee on his face as he imagines Alex being tortured. And then, next we see the bodyguard next to him.
Yeah, and he's just kind of like, he's just sitting there. He's like, he's just there kind of patient with the writer. And then his one helper is standing on the other side of the fireplace, and kind of like sort of somewhere in between, I think emotionally, between the bodyguard and the writer. And then the other guy is just kind of doing his own thing, playing with the with the
pool balls.
The pool balls, because everything's happening on a pool table apparently.
Yeah.
No, I thought that was a great scene. Very well done. Lighting. Everything great.
And then, much like in the book, Alex eventually decides he can't take it anymore and does a big leap out the window.
And does not die.
Does not die. They had the shot for like as from Alex's POV falling towards the ground. I guess they came up with like a rig that they could put the camera inside, and they literally threw the camera out the window. And they were able to do it. They were able to get 5 takes, I think, before it was damaged.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. That was a good shot too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cut to Alex, very much in a hospital in this version.
Yes, very much in a hospital. No doubt about it. No argument there.
Which again is probably what informed my assumption that he was in a hospital in the book.
You're still wrong, but
I admitted that it was probably some kind of a government facility. And so he's the moment when he wakes up and there's a nurse and a doctor banging in the next area.
Yeah, well, he makes area. He groans in pain. He's like, oh, and then he hears,
oh. That's a funny scene, and it's another one of those kind of moments that seems to kind of come out of nowhere in this movie. But I like that better than the deltoid crotch grab. That was just
yeah. Okay. No, I like that. That was good fun. That was funny.
So Alex wakes up after some time.
Feels like a million years, he says.
Yeah. The psychiatrist comes to see him. I guess the parents come to see him first. And he's a bit abusive to them, but I don't think they have as much of a conversation as they did in the book.
No, he's not nearly as rude to them in the movie as he was in the book.
Yeah. And then this a psychiatrist shows up. He asks her about
these dreams that he was having. Yeah,
that they were messing around with his head, which I think is the books or the film's version of implying that he got brain surgery.
Yeah.
Even though, man, he's got a healthy head of hair there. They didn't. It doesn't seem like they bothered to shave that head before brain surgery, but I think that's definitely supposed to be the film's shortcut explanation of the brain surgery.
Yeah.
She does a little test with these little flashcards where he has to come up with what the other people are saying in the conversation. The first couple of responses he gives just seem to be
so fucking weird, crazy,
meaningless gibberish.
Yeah.
And I remember early times that I had seen this film, I took that to mean that his brain was damaged to the point where he can't kind of make meaningful sentences anymore. I think more like it was maybe just him testing her to see if he can get away with saying literally anything.
Right.
Because that's what she said, just whatever comes to mind.
Cabbage.
Yeah, exactly. And then as it progresses, they get to be more, I guess, more pertaining to the pictures, but also they start to get... I like the one about the guy on the ladder peeking his head into the window.
No time for the old in and out, miss. I'm just here to check your meter.
Right. But I think that's their... Again, much like the flashcards in the book, this is their way of trying to see whether they've managed to reverse the Ludovico technique. And then we have the Minister of the Interior show up.
Dude, his fucking shirt was mint.
Oh, I don't really remember it. I'll have to Google that.
It was this gorgeous golden, shiny, and then he had a gold tie with a black suit. I want that shirt so bad.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like their conversation spells things out a bit more than it did in the book.
Yeah, I think so.
As far as we're friends, you're not going to say anything bad about your friends who have saved you and who have made the bad writer who tried to kill you disappear from the face of the earth.
And we're going to give you a good job. And
we're going to give you a good job and good money.
Now, was that in the book? Because it almost makes me feel like maybe Kubrick did read that last chapter, but chose to go with the original.
I mean, I think there was talk about, the government giving him a job. They didn't talk specifically about what it was until the last chapter.
Okay.
But it's also possible, I do know that, before they were finished making the film, Kubrick became aware of the final chapter and may have read it, and obviously could have made modifications to the script to include things that he read about in that final chapter too. Because obviously things were changed. The script must have been changed after shooting began if the Singing in the Rain was improvised by Malcolm McDowell, because otherwise they wouldn't have been able to add that to the scene later, right?
Yeah.
And then they bring Alex in a present, which is these massive speakers.
Oh, but before that, the Minister of the Interior is hand feeding him.
Oh, yeah.
Steak. And I just love how he kept smacking his lips open every time he wanted to bite. He was
oh, yeah.
Give me a bite. Yeah, I actually that. That scene was kind of funny.
Alex was so, had that guy in the palm of his hand through that whole scene. He knows that. Yeah. I got your balls. I got your blocos. Your yarbles are in my palms.
Yeah. Sorry, and then brings in the gift of music and flowers and photographers.
Yeah, that's the photo moment for the papers, right? The Minister of the Interior shaking hands with Alex, we're friends now. all hard feelings are lost. The fact that we broke his brain and then had to cut it open to fix it, no big deal. Lessons were learned. Everything's fine.
And that was the end.
That was the end. He hears the music. He goes into his special place and
the weird face
decides,
again. Yeah.
fantasizes himself fucking some girl in the snow while a bunch of men in suits stand around applauding them. That's a common fantasy of mine, so I can relate.
For real?
No.
Okay.
And that was the end. Yeah, I was cured, all right. That was Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange, which I think is still, despite maybe some of the dated set elements and some of the dated costume elements, is still a pretty effective film. It's still pretty dark and shocking.
Shocking. It's definitely shocking.
Yeah. Blood color in the 70s is just too red.
Okay.
I don't mean like people bled a different color in the 70s. I mean
there was just too much fucking oxygen in the atmosphere.
What they
the
used for like fake blood in the 70s is just too red. And I don't know, maybe that had something to do with the code, the MPAA code, as far as like you can't have blood look too real. I don't know, but that does bother me when I see blood. And sometimes, like even from the 80s, and you see movies that have like really really bad Foley for like people getting punched.
Right.
This didn't seem too bad for that. All of the sound effects seemed pretty good.
It was interesting, like especially when he was getting beat when he was being drowned in that tub. How it wasn't really a sound effect; they just had the music kind of get louder at those moments. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
God, that scene's still gonna. That was hard to watch.
Mm-hmm.
There was a few scenes in this movie that were very hard to watch.
It is still a favorite of mine. I am a fan of Stanley Kubrick. I don't know if I'd put this in my top 4 or 5 Kubricks, though. Maybe.
Okay. I definitely remembered it very, very different. I think I watched it through the lens of youth. And thinking about how young I was when I watched it, I'm very shocked that nobody was there to tell me to shut this off. But I don't think I really understood a lot of what was happening when I watched it the first time. I kind of remember, I thought the makeup was interesting. I thought the way that he talked was interesting. And yeah, I don't know if I didn't really understand, but I did this time around, and it was a much more of an intense experience for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Your final thoughts?
It's a good movie. It's a classic. I don't think. I think I can understand why some places balked, at a film like this.
Yeah.
It's a difficult subject, but it's not a story that you could tell if it was in any way toned down. It doesn't work to have, unless Alex is that, the pinnacle of criminal. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really make sense for him to be the one who goes through the Ludovico technique. And
if the Ludovico technique wasn't so extreme, there would be no way to release him into the public or no reason to put him through that. And yeah, like it is, like we spoke about it earlier. It was a book of extremes, and it was definitely a movie of extremes as well. And
again, like it's a book about the the need to be able to choose mm-hmm. whether you're going to do good or evil. And I think unless you have someone who was first choosing to do great evil, having that, I don't know. I don't think I had an ending place for that thought.
That's okay.
But I don't think the story works unless it's in the extreme.
I agree.
So there we go. Fantastic adaptation, though. I think it's worth noting that it's obviously there are differences and there are more things missing, I think, than changed. But there were some changes made as well, due in part, I think, sometimes to what's missing. But on the whole, pretty faithful. Keeps most of the scenes, lifts a lot of the monologue, I think, straight from the book, and yeah,
and some great iconic imagery.
Totally.
Are we going to give it a star rating? Or are we doing that on the live episode?
I mean, I'm happy to give the film 4 stars.
4 stars?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to give it 3 yarbles out of 5.
3 yarbles?
Yeah.
3 yarblocos. What's the star to yarble exchange rate?
1-to-1.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Got to check these things. They may not be.
Absolutely.
All right, that's going to bring us to a close. I don't know how long this episode is going to be, but it's going long as we record. So
It is, yeah.
we'll see how this goes. Next up will be our live episode. That will be on Sunday, January 7th. No, February 7th.
We're
January 7th will be going backwards in
So
time.
we will be doing the live episode next year.
January
7th, 2022.
We're just going to take a little breather before we do the live episode.
We just want to let everything soak in.
Yeah. Got to really absorb the book and reflect on our thoughts about it before doing our finale breakdown.
That's good.
Live episode February 7th, 1 week from whenever this is getting posted probably, but probably not 1 week from when you're listening to it, so just pay attention to the February 7th part. We're on Facebook. If you want to follow us there, it's facebook.com/bandthingshappen. You can also email us at gmail.com, bandthingshappen@gmail.com. You can support us in a couple of different ways. You can come and sign up at Patreon to become a supporter there. It's patreon.com/blah, blah, blah media. That's BLAH media. Or you can just buy us a coffee over at buymeacoffee.com/blah, blah, blah. We also have a website. It's blahblahblahmedia.com. All of our episodes are there. A convenient player is built right into the homepage. You can stream right from Podbean through that. And I think that's all of our socials. I'm Todd Sullivan.
And I'm Oren Barter.
This has been When Bad Things Happen to Good People. Now go read a fucking book.